relevant. I had a couple of really great emails just before this from one of our regulars that is with us a bunch of the time. And he's actually here right now. And it's not Levi's note taker. I don't even know who Levi is, but he's here all the time. Levi's note taker. Hey, Levi, how are you with your note taker? Anyway, and that's Otter, which we've talked about, everybody, which I use now. And I don't have it do anything for this webinar because I don't need to, because we record it. But anyway, Robert, thank you for the couple of emails that you sent. And I'm actually going to play that video a little bit later here, which is a 14-minute video about re-greening. I'm going to call it reforestation in Africa. I haven't watched it, so I'm going to take Robert's word for it that it's awesome. And we're going to watch that. We're going to talk a little bit about water treatment in homes, in commercial situations, with specifically a technology that I've heard a little bit about, but yesterday I actually was able to be with one of the principals of a company that's really doing some great things in the whole area. And the company's called Sign Labs. And we'll have their principals on to speak with us at some point here in the future. But we're kind of excited about what that technology can do, and I'll show it to you. And we'll talk a little bit more about Riggins Hot Springs and what we're really getting ready to really kick off with now, because as of mid last week, our actual lodging booking website, because that's primarily what the doing right now, a lot of people in amazing lodging circumstances that we've talked about. The site's now live, and I'll just quickly go over that for a couple of minutes. And then, like I said, we'll obviously hit anything that you guys want in terms of comments and questions and such. Interestingly, I actually, maybe a little bit of AI to start. I have a app that I got that is one of the chat GPT based apps. So in other words, they're very clear that that's exactly what they link to. And I believe that the most recent data that primarily chat GPT gets is from October 2024 now. So it's gotten much more recent. However, I've got an app now that will allow me to ask it questions about activities and events that are current as of today. And I'm not sure what technology that uses, but we're going to talk a little bit about that and what other experiences that you've had with the kinds of apps that are out there for just the AI world. So anyway, Mark, what else might you have that you'd like to chat about?
Well, I have music. That's the most important thing I have. So we are again together with our band. Um, so we are now rehearsing or practicing every week. So that's exciting for me.
Very cool. I
Yep.
knew that, everybody. Mark and I have visited about it. What I didn't know
Right.
until just recently is his band, I'll just call it disbanded, kind of stopped playing together right during the pandemic, when obviously
Yes.
live entertainment was stopped in, all around the world for
Right.
some period of time. And for at least the last 6 months or more, he's been trying to put a group back together. And at least as of last week, he still didn't have a lead singer. And maybe he's
Right.
filled that gap this week. Did you find somebody, Mark, that you're feeling? They've tried out a couple of people, but they haven't
Yes.
found the one they want yet.
No, we're looking for someone, and someone who has to be a little bit charismatic, so to attract
A
people.
front person, everybody.
Exactly.
That's what
Yes.
he's meaning. Um,
Yep.
and I'm guessing probably would be best they live in Dhaka because we probably don't want them coming from Southern
Yes.
California to, to
Right.
try to practice every week and then put them in play. So anyway,
Yeah, and we joked about like Wayne, you're not a bad singer, so if you're interested, we would
right, yeah,
love
well,
that.
that's at least that's maybe partially right. The singer part, I don't know about bad or good, but anyway, Mark, I think I've asked you this, but I don't remember. The audience, I'm sure, with what percentage of what you will sing once you do begin doing gigs again is going to be in your native language versus English or whatever else? And when you do a gig,
Yeah.
what language is it? Is it typically in?
Okay, so right now we're doing mostly cover songs, so we're not doing originals because as we formed a new band, we don't have any originals right now. So when we do covers, mostly right now, mostly English, yeah, probably 50-50 English and our own language.
Okay.
So yeah,
And is that because will people that you're singing for, the audiences, will they also be such that they understand English well enough, or
yes.
they don't care about the lyrics, or um, or are the cover songs in English harder maybe to get into language because of
uh,
maybe the rhyme or whatever that might be in the songs?
okay. So the first part is like when we're doing popular songs, people don't care about lyrics that much. They
Right.
just want to have a good time.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and our crowd, the crowd that we are targeting, they're mostly young people, and they speak English. Um, so I think English works pretty well, and we don't need like translating. That would be a lot of hard work to do, and sometimes it doesn't fit. So it's better to do in English. And when we're doing original songs, we're working on some of the songs that are in our own language. So uh, then it's easier to put music into that kind, like when we have our own songs. So
The thing Mark shared with me recently, everybody, is, and I think we're all becoming victims of this, especially those of us that do anything as an entrepreneur. And I was a victim of it this week, which is people scamming us. And I'll talk about
yes,
that in a minute. But Mark got it to a certain extent. I don't think he used the word scammed, but when the other reason they broke up is their previous lead singer basically they made an album and original music, and he took it away for himself and
yes,
is now out performing as a singles artist, as a single artist with a backup band, but still not what the rest of the band believed was going on.
yep,
Um,
right. Yep. So, uh, yeah, because we didn't make like contracts, formal documents before starting band. So he did all that, and uh, he has copyright, and like every time a royalty is put into his name, so we don't get any money.
well, bummer. So what I was victim of this week was credit card fraud. Two of my wife and I's cards um, were hacked, and false charges were made on them. Um, Interestingly, the one that I used that got hacked, the charges were almost all for books at online sites. So everything was online. So somehow They got the card number, they got the expiration date, they got the 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 code number, the CVC that most cards have. So MasterCards, Visa cards, American Express. So they had to have all of that, and or they wouldn't have been able to charge anything. And it was all at places that when you check the names out, they were bookstores. Um, they did get processed, and then finally the credit card company flagged it and stopped it, but it went on for about 2 weeks, and there was never, a ton of them every day. They would spread them out, and they were almost all under $50, and actually right around from like 35 to $50. Matter of fact, nothing over $50. And again, maybe there's a hint there. Maybe there's a little bit of a flag that comes into play when somebody tries to eat for more than that. The point here is make sure you keep track of your own situation and any kind of online purchase that you make, that you look at your statements from whatever the kind of device you're using, card, whatever it is, and make sure that nobody else is making false charges. On Deb's, it was, what was it that they bought or they tried to buy? And hers, that didn't even actually go through. The company actually that issued the card caught it. And the challenge of this is you have to go through all of your charges. I mean, I must have had 30 of them over the 2-week period that we had to find, and then we had to report them. And you know, maybe we didn't even catch all of them. I think we did, but and that just, I mean, we probably, based on these two incidents that both happened in the same week, we spent 6 to 8 hours of cumulative time, which is stupid that you have to spend that amount of time for people cheating and doing what they shouldn't be doing. So anyway, just something that we experienced, and not quite the level of what Mark experienced with a bandmate, but still not good. So watch out for that. So I am going to share my screen. So I have moved back into my office. So our other line, and I don't very often get calls on it. It just seems like it's during these sessions that I get more. By the way, I'm wearing kind of a green theme today, green and yellow. This is Colorado State University shirt. It says Rams on the front. And that's where a lot of my kids went to college. Then this is a John Deere hat, one that I got at CES that I attended. Again, a theme of green and yellow. It was kind of intentional that I wore it today with this so that we'd have that on for the session. Not that I'm a big John Deere fan, or I am a big Rams, Colorado State fan, but anyway, one last little sports thing. If you are a hockey fan, tonight's a big night, even if you're not a Canadian or an American. But there's what's called the Four Nations Cup, that's a substitute for the All-Star Game at the middle of their season, where there are national teams for Canada, US, Sweden, and Finland. And all four of those countries played a round robin against each of the other three. And the winner by points moved on, as did the second place team. And those were the US and Canada. And then Finland and Sweden are playing for third place. But tonight, the US and Canada play for the championship. So that's a big game. All the top players for those two countries, or not all of them, but most of them are participating. And is kind of, at least here in the States, it's highly anticipated. So anyway, then I'm going to show one other quick thing, just because when I'm working during the day in my office, and I try, by the way, not to just sit. So right before this, for the hour preceding this call, I was out working in my yard. We are having our first very nice day today. It's been overcast, snowy, rainy, right around freezing temperature wise for a couple weeks, really, not very much break. But today the sun came out, it's completely sunny. I think the highs are supposed to hit 50 today, which it probably hasn't been 50 since December. So, and then right now, though, I'm looking out, the trees are rustling around. It looks like it's getting a little windy. I don't know that that was predicted, but we don't get huge winds here anyway. I think I did say a couple weeks ago, so it was on a Friday. So our session would have been the day before, but I think I talked about it last week. We had a snowstorm with really wet snow, and we lost a 50-year-old tree where it just collapsed. And it was a big pine, deciduous tree, or excuse me, coniferous tree, conifer with pine needles that stay on it year round. And it had multiple trunks coming up. It's actually a species that I didn't know. We're not sure we've ever classified it, but there were probably 5 of these trunks that had come out of a central root nodule under the ground, and they were each a foot or more in diameter. And but the tree then grew up and became very broad, provided a lot of shade for our front yard area, and which our house faces straight west. And that's the way the sun in the winter is. The sun stays low in the sky, going from across this from east to the west. And anyway, when it came down, fortunately there weren't any vehicles parked in the street. There weren't any people. It happened during the night. Didn't Wasn't big enough that it hit a house. It did completely block our street. But anyway, it's pretty obvious now because I've talked with a number of people about it, that what happened is it rotted from the inside out. And it finally reached the point where it was so rotten, dead in the very core center of it, even though on the outside it looked very healthy. It growing, it was producing more and more seeds and pine needles, leaves. And and when it just got a certain weight of snow, it caused that all those middle trunks feeding down into this central blob to just break. And it looked like it got hit by lightning or something. But anyway, I was out cleaning that up before, so I got a good hour's worth of exercise in. And now after we're done today, I'll do the same thing and get another hour in, and that'll be plenty for the day for a little bit older guy. So anyway, don't just sit all day at your computer screen or sit working or doing whatever you do where it's sedentary. Get up and move around. So sit for an hour, walk around for 10 minutes, sit for an hour, walk around for 10 minutes or something like that. Anyway, well, let's talk about this water treatment company a little bit. And I'm going to minimize my screen here and move it over. And I'm going to, well, actually, I need to share it first. So I'm going to share screen. And then I'm going to minimize and also a couple Zoom screens. And I'm going to go to this website right here called Sign Labs. So let's go to their homepage. It's a US company, East Coast based, not important where it's based. But what it does is makes a device, or actually several different ones, but they work the same way, that will reduce clogging that occurs over time. And this is a picture of their commercial one. And it does require a little bit of very low amperage wattage power. So this looks like a transformer. By the way, And it gives a good description of of how it works. But I'm just going to first go to what it does. So here's some before and after pictures. If you've got a pipe that's full of water, over time, it'll start to fill up inside with particles that are attaching to the sides of the pipe. And this is very common in metal pipes. These, you can see, this is a copper pipe over here, because you can tell it from the color. I don't know exactly what these here are, but they look maybe like they're galvanized or steel primarily. Um, this is in a cooling tower type condenser situation. Here's one in a boiler, where the boiler takes cold water, it heats it up and turns it into steam, and the steam creates energy that is used then to produce run a turbine that then creates electricity. So it's a generator, electrical generator. But this is an example of before and after, and look how much cleaner. What I don't know is how long it took to get this level of dirtiness inside the pipe, both here. Here, in this case, um, the water's not, you're not even seeing what's going through, but these coils sit in water, okay? And the water is getting heated around them. So look at how much worse the conducting of heat from those coils would be, this picture versus this one, where the coils are obviously much more clean. So one of the things that they've been able to do, this company, Sign Labs, is to get the lead organization, which is what creates certifications for buildings. And they, depending on what all your building is done in terms of its construction and its power usage and so on, it goes from silver to gold and gold to platinum. And if you get more points, the closer you get to this platinum level. Well, having this system installed will allow that to occur. Um, the uses are huge anywhere where there's water. Um, Obviously, these are places that probably use a lot of water. Wastewater treatment, obviously, got, all the water for a city, let's say, coming into that big wastewater plant there. Um, this is just, little examples of all the things it can do. Um, Here's some others, cooling towers, evaporative coolers, heat pumps, chillers, cooling management, boilers, water heaters, reverse osmosis systems. Interestingly, why would you think you'd have to clean a reverse osmosis? Well, they get scaled, they get with age, they become less efficient. And I'm still just barely touching the surface of learning about this system. And we're going to focus on the residential here in just a minute because I'm not exactly sure. I can't tell you how much installing this to a commercial application would be. Although it might say it here. I haven't clicked on this before. I'm going to do that right now. Obviously, they have a chat box over here. How do I know whether my building has a cooling tower? You that's something we're not going to necessarily talk about here, but here it says that Sign Labs will see a reduction in water use by 15 to 30%, which will directly lower the water bill. That could be huge if you use millions and billions of gallons of water a year. Um, I don't think it's going to tell us the commercial cost. I think you need to put a bunch of the information about how big your cooling tower is, for example, and how much it costs, how much it stays in operation. But there is a cost for the residential. So we're going to switch here to residential. Here's what's cool. This is the device that you'd use in your home. All right, this is residential. The pipe will go right here in the middle. It doesn't need any outside power. It literally powers itself. My guess is there is a battery in it, and over time you'd have to replace the battery or batteries. I'm guessing they're relatively inexpensive. But you put this just over the pipe. This comes apart right here, and you put it around your pipe wherever, um, probably where it's coming into your house. And it starts to clean your water. It starts to do what we saw was being done in those pipes in that previous picture. But more than that, it actually will kill viruses. It'll kill fungi. It'll kill bacteria. Essentially, it will improve your water quality dramatically. And I'm not going to read all of this. Here we go. Sign Labs Water Systems kills Legionella, which is a horrible bacteria that you can get in your water. It'll remove sediment that will be in your water. Here it is apart. So you literally just put this around your pipe, and I think you put it right where it's coming in. You don't have to turn your water off. You just put it right in. You then can eliminate chlorine and other kinds of chemicals that you're adding. It can be used in a swimming pool in a really cool way. And again, you'd put it probably where your water movement equipment is for a pool. And then you can get more details. And it costs $1 a year to operate it. So that probably does mean that it's batteries, and a battery is going to last longer than a year. Because I think a AA or AAA battery today costs more than that. But if you click here on more details, you'll actually end up eventually getting a price. And that gives you a little perspective of size. That's probably 2 inches. So that's about the size of the main line that comes in into most homes. But here's where you can buy it now. And it's on sale, but $498, $500. So I will tell you right now, that's going to stop a lot of people from buying it because it's experimental. People are not going to know whether it's going to work or not. And that's a pretty good chunk for a one-time payment. And it's not like it's $39 or $33, which people would buy without hardly thinking about it. But it's big enough number you need to be thinking about it some way, trying to see if there's any smaller version, but I don't think there is. That's it. Looks like a nice website is signlabs.net. And there's actually multiple other Sign Labs companies that do other things. So that's not the one. This is it. So by the way, let's look at page source here and see who this website is made by. I hope this is teaching a little bit to some people that don't know this. If you ever really want to know who builds what the platform is that any website you're looking at is on, you can look at the code, and that's what this is. I'm not as good at reading it as maybe even Mark is, but near the top, because this will go on for a ways here, it'll tell you, oh, okay, here it is. It's Squarespace. Squarespace is one of the providers of inexpensive websites. Wix is another one. Obviously, WordPress is not an inexpensive one, but probably one that's used by a lot of people. Mark, what do we use most often?
Kajabi.
Kajabi.
Yep.
So, and have for a lot of years. We were one of the original users of it. But so this is
Right.
This is a Squarespace site. And I didn't see really this company did a good job of getting rid of so their plan with Squarespace is an expensive one because I didn't see any evidence of their of Squarespace because usually it'll say pre presented by or custom made by or whatever by whatever Wix or Squarespace.
Powered
Interesting.
by.
Yeah, powered by. Interestingly, they don't have a large social media presence. No Instagram, X, whatever. This is their Facebook. Let's go to their Facebook.
Facebook.
I believe this is a relatively new company. Like I said, I was introduced yesterday to their principals.
Oh, they got only 3 likes and 5 followers.
Right. No, it's very new. Um, let's go see how. Looks like they've had two posts ever, so they're obviously
Right.
not using this very much. Um, and they had one back in May when they updated their profile picture, and and then they updated their cover, which is what we're seeing here. That's the only thing that they did the same day. They've never had
Yeah,
any posts, everybody. Those are not posts even. Those are just,
just yeah,
Facebook makes those posts for them.
right.
Um,
Yep, just the logo and the cover.
yeah,
That's all.
you know. And I don't know what other ways you can buy this stuff. Like I said, there aren't any prices for the commercial. Um, anyway, something interesting, and we're going to be spending some time with. It's economic. It could be making the planet better, and so that's that. So it is 3:30. A little bit after that, we're going to play this video from Robert that he sent me. So I'm going to go to my emails here real quick and go in and look at what I got recently. And there it is from Robert. Robert's one of our regulars. He's on today. And he's more than willing to, anytime, maybe after we play this, to unmute. But this is Africa's mega food forest mega project. And this is a 14-minute video that we're going to play. And I just started it, so I'm going to go back and play it again. You can tell that this has been modified. Look at these circles, everybody. See this? Yeah, let's just observe this a little bit. I really don't know what this is. I don't know why these little circles in the ground are here. They're everywhere. Maybe this was greatly abused at some point and it's just now coming back. Maybe the video will tell us. Andrew Millicent's a interesting guy, by the way. And is this his site, Robert? No, it was, yeah, permaculture instructor Andrew Millicent. Journeys to the UN World Food Program in the country of Niger, in the African Sahel, to see an innovative land recovery project, and so on. So first 5 minutes seem pretty illustrative for a teaser if you'd like. So he gave it to us thinking we'd like to play it, and we absolutely do. So here, now we can see this earlier. That actually these are man-made. This is cut, these little circles. Wow, why isn't this moving back? Oh, yeah, I'll have to play it here. Let's see. Come on. All right, come on. What you playing? Huh. played a little bit of this before. Maybe I have to use, but again, it's showing. Robert, what are we doing wrong here? Mark, help me out. What am I doing wrong?
Might be, is this just the image or the
I
video?
don't know. It might be
Yeah.
because it looks like, but maybe we'll find it. Maybe I can go to the
So
link.
if you like scroll down on your email and see,
Oh, wait a minute. Look at this. That's all I
okay,
needed to do. Let's just go
right.
to
The client review was brutal.
We're gonna be underwater for weeks.
I'm already so pruny.
This is fixable.
this is all minute 38 here.
I'm already crushed. I cannot be crushed.
That is Grammarly.
Welcome to one of the largest scale land restoration projects on the planet. For this work, people relied on food aid just to survive. But 10 years ago, a vast barren wasteland began to transform, and now a million people are feeding themselves from this land. So could this work be the key to ending hunger in Africa and beyond? Let's find out. I'm traveling in the Sahel of Africa with the largest humanitarian agency on earth, the United Nations World Food Program, the first responders to hunger in war zones and disasters. But what I came here to see is the mind-blowing work they're doing to actually solve hunger by fixing the underlying problem. Because when soils blow away and the land desertifies, people can't feed themselves. But what I'm witnessing here is the repair of soils and water across Africa at a scale that I never imagined possible. This is Africa's Great Green Wall, where a massive strip of trees is being planted across the continent to hold back the Sahara Desert. But the thing is, these places I went to are not places that just anyone can visit. Access is tightly controlled, but the WFP works wherever there's hunger in the world. So they invited me along on this mission to tell this critical story that almost no one knows about. And in this 4-part series, I'm explaining the details of some of the most important work of our time. We are here in Niger, Africa, known as Niger. In this nearly 5 square mile block of land restoration, 5 different villages planted about 100,000 trees, put in about 20 tons of grass seed, and we can see the land is starting to come back to life. But will the plants survive? The key is to make sure they get enough water. But that's not easy to do in a desert because this region has what's called the drought flood cycle. We have 9 dry months. The land becomes parched. And when the rains finally do come, the rain can't soak in. And it rushes down and it creates flooding in lowlands. But in the Sahel, we find an age-old water harvesting structure called the half moon. This simple structure has all of this capacity to store this water and hold this water until the water soaks down into the ground. There are a lot of different variations on these half moon structures, and which one you choose depends on what your end goal is. Are you creating a forest or a grassland or a millet growing area? And how well do the soils hold or drain water? But the basic idea is that the half moon's laid out in a contour and dug so it intercepts the water flowing down slope during heavy rains. There are deep pits dug inside and outside of the half moon called zai pits, which collect organic matter that blows or flows into the pits. And ultimately, they allow for the deep soakage of rainwater into the ground. Oftentimes, a tree is planted, as well as grasses and other seeds that germinate with the rains. Birds and wind bring in more seeds, and the half moon becomes a concentration point for water, nutrients, plants, and animals. The ecosystem grows and life returns. It's astoundingly simple, but how does it work in practice? This site is just 1 year old, and this site is the same design, but 8 years old. We've got the rows of half moons with the trees planted in them, and now the trees are growing up. They're beginning to form a canopy over the ground. We see the grasses, we see the ground covered, and even now we have water in these half moons.
So here you see this half moon. This is still the water at this stage. Still harvesting a lot of water. You have different local species and a lot of grasses. Good animal feed. This shade, this temperature, you already have 5 to 8 degrees less compared to the places that are without treatment. This is one of the best ways to improve food security, because at the end of the day, this is a food basket in the making, but also nourish the land that nourishes people.
You must be wondering just how this restoration creates food. You see, when land's restored, it produces the grasses that feed livestock, which means people have milk to drink and meat to eat. The native Sahel trees produce leaves and fruits that can be eaten by the tough camels and goats who browse the thorny branches in times of need during the long dry season. The trees shade, they hold the soil, they soak in water, they nourish livestock. What I'd seen so far looked promising, but it's a pretty young site that hasn't fully developed. I couldn't help but wonder, is a system like this really enough to end hunger? To find out the truth, I needed to visit the very best site they could take me to near the southern border with Nigeria. The border is porous and there are militant groups that sometimes cross over, so we needed a military escort. But visiting this mature site was critical to seeing the full extent of what is possible in this kind of restoration work. What you see behind me was once a barren wasteland with compacted hardpan where the water was rushing quickly off, not soaking in, no organic matter, no plants, no trees, and now we see a dramatic transformation of this landscape. When we look at satellite images from the last 7 years, we can see that the area of bare exposed soil has literally dropped to zero. This land has fully recovered its capacity to hold water and grow biodiversity. And that means the potential for growing food is huge. That is so clear that the government of Niger is all in for this mega restoration. And I got the inside scoop directly from the chief forest ranger of the state of Maradi. He took me on a thorough tour of the site and pointed out all kinds of fascinating details, including some pretty remarkable ripple effects of the restoration work on the greater region.
Donc, et vous voyez, le niveau de régénération contribue vraiment à la concrétisation de la grande muraille verte au Niger.
So what I learned was, since we are at the edge of the Sahara Desert, this area is really affected by strong, hot winds coming from the desert. This can really dry out the landscape. But this site's continuous tree canopy actually breaks the force of those drying winds. The point is to actually block the expansion of the desert. Niger is one of the hottest countries on the planet. The temperatures are significantly lower in these forested areas. And it's not just deep in the interior of the sites where you have all these trees, it's also the edges of the sites we're seeing the same temperature effects. This whole project has become a biodiversity net. All sorts of seeds are blowing in, birds are attracted, they're bringing other seeds. Right now we're here in the 3-month wet season. It looks lush and green. You can see all of this fodder. You can imagine the animals becoming fat. But the critical function of this system is really in the dry season. 9 months of the year, this is dry, when there's just not a lot out there. So this diverse perennial polyculture here provides types of foods that can be harvested in the dry season. There are different yields that grow here even during the dry season. They're harvesting plants for culinary purposes, for medicinal purposes. We think of the Great Green Wall as stopping the expansion of the Sahara Desert, but it's actually so much more than that. The Great Green Wall is actually rebuilding the ecological matrix of a region. And when we start to see the effects at scale, like this large site and the 528 other Great Green Wall sites in Niger, we actually see the restoration of the ecological fabric of this region. Just within this 800-hectare site, there are 3 million cubic meters of water that have soaked into the ground here instead of running off. And 15% of that water is actually soaking into the deep aquifer and regenerating the permanent water table. The actual effects on people's lives is a very tangible thing. We traveled to a new garden in the nearby village to see the real life effects of a regenerated water table.
Over time, the water table has risen and there's water available, allowing for production pretty much to take place all year round. In this area where we are, this is just a 1.5 hectare market garden site, one of 9. Communities here are now able to produce crops in these gardens because they're pumping water from the ground, water that has been improved from the rising water table due to the restoration activities that have taken place elsewhere. Before this activity, 9 out of every 10 children that were tested were malnourished. What we saw earlier in the market garden, the community is able to produce a variety of diverse nutritious foods, including vegetables and fruits, which are then also used in their local diet, contributing to a better nutrition for the community and lessening malnutrition for their children and for themselves.
Over the last 5 years in Niger, an average of 3 million people per year were food insecure and needed food aid. But in that same time period, these resilience projects have gotten 500,000 people off of long-term food assistance. Let that sink in for a minute. 500,000 people are being fed from the 528 resilience projects in Niger. So this is obviously working on a lot of levels. But the big question is, how do we scale this up to the place where it can actually end regional hunger? In Niger, in the last 10 years, the World Food Program with the government and partners have restored about 300,000 hectares. When you do this type of land treatment, you're actually helping areas downstream because this water is soaking in. And you also get this incredible wind protection effect. So for every hectare that you restore, you actually affect 3 times that amount of land. So the 300,000 hectares really is more like 900,000 hectares. Now, Niger is a huge country. The Sahel is a massive area. So this is still just a fragment of what needs to happen here, right? We're beginning to see a scale of solution that matches the scale of the problem.
Walking through this, you can imagine that you're walking through the Great Green Wall. The Great Green Wall is the possibility of transforming desert lands, degraded lands into food baskets. Now, the vision is how we can collectively put all hands on deck and make this regeneration in sub-Saharan Africa, in the Sahel, in Niger, an unprecedented game changer.
The World Food Program supports these projects in a lot of ways, including equipment, training, food, and money for the people doing the work. This helps to stabilize the community while growing their natural resources.
We can do this together with our partners. The government of Niger, they have taken resilience as their strong vision to transform poor areas in the country. This is very important with the context of Niger in terms of the concept of the land becoming the nourishing mother of the population. Nous avons voulu, en tout cas, que nos actions rentrent dans le cadre de ces actions de l'agroalimentaire. It's basically saying that as WFP, we need to recognize that we can play a catalyst role, we can play a supporting role, but the biggest role and the biggest achievement is what actually communities are able to do by themselves. We really need to be engaged and motivated within the vision of the Great Green Wall. It means also a Great Green Wall against hunger.
What if there was no galaxy far, far away? There was no joy. And they never did a
So here's year 2 now.
2 years ago, before the war, this was a barren wasteland. Nothing had been grown here for 40 years.
So he
When
talked
the
to
UN World
us.
as green as it gets right now for the whole year.
This is-
I've never seen this many grazing animals. The entire Sahel is like one big free-range pasture. So we drove up to the point where it transitions to the Sahara Desert, which is the Senegal River. We are here at the Senegal River, which is the border between Senegal on this side, Mauritania on the other. When you look from space, you can actually see the lateral sand dunes of Mauritania where they hit the Senegal River. The Senegal River is really the divide between the Sahara and Sahel in many parts of the river. So the Senegal River here, it serves not only as the border between Senegal and Mauritania, and not only as the border between the Sahel and the Sahara, but if this river zone is vegetated, it could represent the first line of defense of the Great Green Wall of Africa. The Great Green Wall of Africa is a vision, the project to plant a barrier of trees across the entire width of the continent of Africa, from Senegal to Djibouti. And the purpose of this Great Green Wall is to stop the southern expansion of the Sahara Desert. The Sahara Desert has expanded about 10% in the last 100 years. So we have the Sahara Desert, then we have the Sahel, then we have the savanna, and then we have the rainforest. The design is to actually have a barrier of trees to stop the expansion of the desert southward. So I'm here on the ground at the Great Green Wall to show how we can restore degraded landscapes. We can
We're
keep
gonna
the
stop this
Sahara
in just a
at bay,
minute, but
create abundance, have people living here.
anyway, let's stop there. Great topic for us to do more with. Again, Mark Shepard, if you recall, and who's why is my brain leaving me? The lady scientist that's the large ape. Remember her, Mark? Remember the name of the lady that Mark is acquainted with? Goodall? Good.
No,
Anyway.
okay.
I'm not thinking of it right now. Let's go back to stop sharing here. And looks like Robert put a couple other, looks like Levi's chat. What we found out last week, everybody, is these chat bots, whatever they are, that are the otter note takers, they leave at about 42 minutes. I don't know why. Or was it 52, Mark? I think we found
45, I think.
it's not, it was like 2. It was like either 42 or 52.
Okay.
Anyway, here's more about
Yeah, Robert put in about a lot of links here.
yeah, Andrew Millison.
Yeah, Andrew Morrison. Okay. All right.
He's at Oregon State. which is where my daughter is in Oregon. She is in a little suburb of Corvallis called Philomath. So he's an instructor, Millicent is. Here's some other videos. Mark might have had some connection to a refugee camp in Kenya, but why am I not thinking of the lady's name? That's the large ape. She's well known because she used to do, and she's older. I mean, in her 80s, late 80s maybe. She used to do lots of things on Animal Kingdom and you know the fellow who Marlon Perkins, and has done some great things. Well, Mark talks about he hasn't. I haven't ever heard him call it the Great Green Wall, but what a great name. I don't think Mark ever did get to Vandi Shiva unless it's been very recent. Um, um, was that Millicent that we were seeing speaking there in that video? Robert, write it in the chat.
Yeah, he said, yeah.
Good speaker. That's cool. Let's see if I can find this lady's name real quick. I'm gonna quickly minimize my screen for a second and then come back. I'm not sharing the screen here, so you're just looking at me. But what was her name? Jane Goodall? Might be Jane Goodall. Yep, Jane Goodall. I knew I'd get it. I was close. I had it. So I didn't look it up. And so I'm looking at some of her wiki pages and things about her. Let's see if I'm right about how old she is. I'm pretty sure she's getting up there. Lots. She's done a lot of great things with apes. Very first one was her biography. Let's just see if I.
But Alicia just joined us now, so she must have been.
Has joined us?
Yes,
Who has?
Alicia.
Oh, okay. Maybe she got the time wrong. Maybe she got the time wrong this today.
Right.
She was first in, Jane Goodall was in Tanzania in 1960. All right, born in 1934. Wow, that means she's not, 91. And I don't know that she's still working, but she learned from Leakey, who's well-known anthropologist. First started to observe chimps in the 60s. A bunch of different films she made. Orson Welles was the name of the guy that does a lot of narration. That's not whose name I was thinking of that she did things. Marlon Perkins is who I was thinking about there. Anyway, we have hit the witching hour of 4 o'clock. So great session today. Hope everybody learned something a little bit. We went several different topics. This was fun learning about the Great Green Wall and Andrew Millison. Paul McCartney, there we go. We'll end on a great singer at one point. So.
Great.
Mick Jagger, also pretty good. Prince Harry, I don't know about him, whether he's a singer or not. Kate Middleton. Adele, yeah, he's sung a little bit.
Is
Elton John, he's done a little bit. So
is Paul still alive, or is he dead?
who's that?
Is Paul still alive? McCartney?
Oh, sure, Paul
Oh,
McCartney.
okay.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
I haven't seen him perform just recently, but I think he's still performing. Yeah, he's in his
Yeah.
early 80s, I believe.
Okay.